Hello, fellow hunters. So, we didn't get any new information at the state of play, but have you ever wondered what mole people, AA batteries, and windmills all have to do with Monster Hunter? In this video, we're not exploring the what of the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer, but rather the why. So put on your thinking hats because today we're going diving into Monster Hunter Wilds, and I do mean diving. So before we get started, there are two things I want to address for the sake of clarity. First, in my prior video, I touched on a find that community member Ratchet Games uncovered when we looked closer at the Monster Hunter Wilds logo. Something some viewers apparently missed was just what it was that Ratchet Games uncovered. This image I repeated multiple times throughout the video is what you get when you rearrange the letters in the words Monster Hunter and overlap them with one another to connect the lines in the logo itself. Second, I'm giving away a copy of Monster Hunter Wilds. The winner will be announced within a week of the game coming available for pre-order. I'll be delivering the game via Steam gift, download code, or PayPal in the USD amount of the standard edition of the game. The Gleam link is in the description below, so get your entries in and stay up to date for when we draw the winner. Now, in my prior video where I dissected the logo, observing reflections and patterns in the artistic imagery to draw conclusions from, I mentioned a very prominent aspect of the trailer and something that's generated a lot of discussion. We know that weather will play an important role on both gameplay mechanics as well as monster behavior. This has been a pretty central part of the cinematic expression in the trailer itself, so much as to spotlight the biological defense mechanism of the pangolins with the spires on their backs. Capcom is really trying to drive home the idea that the area the trailer centers around is prone to lightning storms. This is very much supported by the plentiful spires dotting the savannah like lightning rods. I concluded in that video that these lightning rods were man-made and placed here to act as a beacon of safety from the storms that periodically roll through. Others have suggested that these are stone pillars that have eroded with time, or perhaps the tips of dragonators that were left abandoned. While I still feel that these are distinctly and specifically rods intended for the purpose of attracting lightning, whatever these things are still suggests they are man-made. This begs a pretty serious question. The notion of lightning striking is a repeating pattern throughout the trailer. The pangolins, for instance, use their natural defenses against the elements to protect the herd. There is a biologically evolved purpose behind this defense, and biological defenses rarely, if ever, evolve without the need that environmental dangers would create. But what about the lightning rods? The video where I discussed my wish list for the things I would like to see in Wilds, as well as the things that I would like to get but probably won't, one of the points that I revisited were these lightning rods, remarking how frequently we see such pillars of protection, yet their purpose served no real function. Sure, they attract lightning, but if these were man-made, placed by human bodies, then why is there no body to protect? In fact, there's no crops, no fields, no houses, just vast swaths of barren wilderness to explore. A repeating theme in my videos has been to highlight Capcom's intentionality in their aesthetic designs, ecological authenticity, environmental immersion, and patterns in their development process. All of this has demonstrated a keen attention to detail that's brought so much vibrance and flavor to the world of Monster Hunter, down to the very skin and skeletal structure of each of the monsters. It's what makes Monster Hunter feel like Monster Hunter. I spoke on how, without carefully crafted and meticulously curated design choices in their development, we'd find ourselves deep in the trenches of the uncanny valley, and lose the sense of immersion and trueness to life they've sought to present. Without this, we'd lose our suspension of disbelief, and the hallmarks of the richness of Monster Hunter would completely fall flat. It's in this same way that Ryozo Sugimoto and the Monster Hunter team as a whole have incorporated that sense of detail in their imagery and the stories it can tell without ever using words. They know how to conjure vivid imagery in our minds and communicate a message without telling us directly. This is why there's such a sense of satisfaction in the deep dives, theory crafting, and speculation from the Monster Hunter community right now as we hypothesize on the breadcrumb trail that Capcom's given us. They have a very intentional message in even the most insignificant of details. Shout out to all the haters, by the way. Y'all who would discredit creators for engaging in the art of theory crafting by calling us conspiracy theorists or engagement farmers, dismissing us as clickbait. Tell us you missed the point without telling us you missed the point. We see your comments, know you're not worth the response, and yes, we're all making fun of you. So then, following the thought processes of my prior video, if Capcom is so intentional with their designs, going so far as to have numerous lightning rods featured in the Wilds trailer, then what's the point of the prominence? Again, I mentioned earlier we're not tackling the what of the trailer, we're tackling the why. When framed this way, the question becomes, why would Capcom intentionally feature lightning rods in their trailer? I mean, we could just shrug our shoulders with an "it looks cool" and dismiss it as a simple eye catch to wow the audience with a dramatic trailer. And sure, it definitely did wow the audience, but we know that it's more than that when it comes to Capcom. Furthermore, we know it's going to play a role in the environment and further supports the idea of weather playing a role in the gameplay. Therefore, I concluded that this suggests an ancient civilization. We have a lot of ancient civilization documented in Monster Hunter's history, even if much of it wasn't featured in the games or canon. These could be relics of a fallen society, once thriving and lost to time, setting the stage for a great cataclysm to mark the end of their way of life and leaving their society buried in the sand. I mentioned how Capcom stands much to gain from this and how this could be such a huge opportunity for them to explore more deeply. It would be an excellent narrative device to build off of and give a spotlight to early concepts like the Great Dragon War and Equal Dragon Weapon. But what if it goes deeper than that? And I do literally mean deeper. Have you ever seen a stop sign before? Or fence posts, for that matter? When placed, there's a significant amount of the post that's actually underneath the ground. You start by digging a hole, placing the post in that hole, and filling it. In fact, areas prone to storms or unstable ground will even fill the pit with concrete to ensure that there's a solid foundation to hold the post or sign steady against the elements. Whether these are worn concrete pillars, Dragonator tips, or actual lightning rods, whatever society placed them there wouldn't have just propped them up and placed them on top of the sand. With how much sandy environments shift, none of these spires could withstand the test of time without some sort of base to reinforce it. One small gust of wind and they'd all just topple over. When we look closely at these rods, we can see just that. A reinforced base to provide stability across a sandy environment. This tells me two things. First, when they were placed with the intention to combat environmental hazards. This is a no-brainer. Literally nobody is surprised that this environment is prone to storms. It's all over the trailer. But second, and more importantly, the wasteland of desert and sand was already here when mankind placed them. So why is that significant? Whether the Dragonators, concrete pillars with metal cores, or just lightning rods, they wouldn't have needed a reinforced base if they were just simply placing these spires in the soil. If mankind placed these devices in the sand, this would mean that the desolus we see in Wild's trailer was not caused by some great cataclysm, leaving the lightning rods behind as a relic of their society, but rather whatever society placed them in an already desolate wilderness of desert. So if the time frame that these rods were constructed falls after the desert wasteland already existed, wouldn't that mean they don't support the idea of an ancient civilization? I mean, it doesn't make sense to have all of these beacons of protection to simply protect some giant sandbox. If they weren't placed before the sand and desert covered some fallen civilization, wouldn't that suggest that the society that placed them was more modern, perhaps even modern day? And again, we're going to tackle the why in this video. Instead of the what and when, let's frame it differently. If the civilization decided to use lightning rods to protect against the elements, why would they choose to place them all about a landscape of uninhabitable land? This, my friends, is the question I seek to answer, and the other pieces about ancient civilization will fall into place. When we think about energy, there are multiple ways to define it, and you might hear scientists or even school curriculum speak on ideas of kinetic or potential energy. In modern society, the flavor of terminology usually refers to where we get our electricity from and the conversations about whether or not this energy is considered sustainable, thus better for the environment. These forms of energy could be nuclear, fossil fuel, hydroelectric, or even wind. And that's what got me thinking. My last video spoke on an electric circuit and trying to make this fit within notions of ancient society. To my knowledge, there's still nothing that would make a circuit board, like that of a computer chip, fit an ancient civilization. It was from this video that many of your comments chimed in about how society was able to harness the power of electricity, even if not in the same ways we would think of in modern society today. Certain monsters could utilize electricity with the element of lightning, using a biological means to produce electrical current. Yet further, the elemental files of the charge blade could store electrical energy like an oversized AA battery and discharge that energy in a devastating attack. We even see electricity in some form as part of the Sky Corridor's traps in Monster Hunter Frontier. It's clear that even without electronics, electric current is something that has been harnessed for quite some time. So if there's a means to store and release energy, what about the means to generate it? Think about a windmill, for example. Wind spins the turbine, which then creates a reaction in the housing that produces energy. That energy is then fed down cabling through the pole and out onto the electrical grid of the power lines underground. This creates electricity to power our homes. Now, sure, we don't see windmills producing electricity like this in any of the Monster Hunter games, but following the themes of asking why, I again return to our question. Why? Would civilization, ancient or otherwise, choose to place lightning rods all about a landscape of uninhabitable land? Do you see where I'm going with this? We're not looking at an energy grid like we would think of in modern day terms. We're talking about the means of harnessing the energy needed to power something. In an area so prone to lightning storms, now it starts to make sense. Lightning is an easy power source to tap into, with Capcom substantiating the frequency of this lightning with the pangolin's natural defenses required to survive in an environment so electrically dense. Society is harnessing the power of electricity with the means and technology not just to harness it, but also to store it. And this is where it gets good. So again, let's ask ourselves why. Why would a society seek to harness the power of electricity so thoroughly as to erect giant rods to conduct it with? It could be simply to protect hunters from giant lightning elder dragons, which would be an awesome setup for Narwa's return, but I think it's far more than that. Since we don't see an electric grid like we would see with power lines to deliver electricity to our homes, or even electrical power in much of Monster Hunter as we know it, there would need to be a purpose for harnessing electricity in the first place. If not for harnessing power for our villages or homes, then why would we need electricity at all? Going back to the windmill, we see that the power is fed out the bottom of the pole. Similarly, these lightning rods could have power fed out the bottom of their poles as well. With only a few exceptions, all of these rods are oriented upright, with the sand obscuring anything underneath. And it's here we're going to dive deeper. In Monster Hunter 4, we meet a new society, a hardworking group of people who live beneath the surface and thriving off a form of energy of their own, the Traverians. An enigmatic society harnessing geothermal energy and utilizing its benefits for smithing and refinement. As a people, they have molded themselves away in subterranean caverns where the flow of lava could be used in their metallurgy. The world of Monster Hunter is diverse indeed, acknowledging habitats beneath the surface. This is further emphasized by the fight against Geismagorm, quite literally referred to as the Abyssal Archdemon. This creature comes from a world deep beneath the surface and stands opposed to the player in Monster Hunter Rise. Not gonna lie, the whole exploding Dragonator sending it back to its abyss, that was pretty cool. But when you take the ideas of underground further, we could think of other examples like Shara Ishvalda, who could burrow into the sand in its first phase. Take it a step further than that, and there's the Safi Jiva Siege, where we would pursue Safi deeper and deeper into its nest, forcing it to deplete its reserve of bioenergy in each area with consecutive runs. And even more telling, there's the Caverns of El Dorado, where hunters would pursue Kulf Teroth through a network of subterranean caverns and chase it to its ultimate resting place. Now, we're getting deeper. All of these themes support the idea that Monster Hunter isn't so simple as a surface-dwelling series of hunter-gatherer villages, but subterranean societies, monsters, and ecology as well. So much so that some comments in my videos have brought up the ideas of a second subterranean world map making its debut in Wilds, not unlike the underground we see in Tears of the Kingdom. If the lightning rods like a windmill could channel electrical energy with cables running under the sand, they would not only be able to channel this energy, they would furthermore have the technology to store this energy until the time came for a machine or device to activate. You might ask, but what would they be powering? Again, let's ask why instead. Why would the society that placed these lightning rods run cables in the sand to store energy? Earlier, I said ideas of an ancient civilization would start to fall into place. Even though the lightning rods are unlikely to have been placed before the biome became a desert wasteland, it's not at all unlikely that this was indeed an ancient civilization that placed them there in the first place, harnessing the power of electricity just underneath the surface to power a great device of their making. Think on Atal Ka and the phases of its fight. Its final stage literally drags up a machine from underneath the sand, which it then pilots, wielding her own Dragonators against us. And while yes, this is held together by web and afforded locomotion by primitive pulleys, it's not out of the realm of possibility that other machines were constructed under the surface using subterranean tunnels for protection and left buried under the sand to slowly harness electricity and charge a powerful weapon. This would be an excellent opportunity for Capcom to canonize the Great Dragon War in-game, or even just highlight the technological advancements of ancient civilization in a way that's never been represented before. This could further expound on the limited ideas expressed in the Sky Corridor of Monster Hunter Frontier. This would provide motive for an ancient civilization and ancient society to need a power so great that they would seek to conceal its existence and require an unfathomable amount of energy to power it. One that was so terrible, it perhaps would be best left underground where no man, animal, or wyvern could ever see it, and left dormant over the ages. If these lightning rods are powering a subterranean weapon, then just what sort of weapon would that be? Why would the ancients need a power so great they would harness the electricity of storms to achieve it? For what reason would they seek to create something so diabolical, something so damning, that they would conceal its existence underground? These are the questions I turn to you, fellow hunter. I want to hear your thoughts. I don't believe these lightning rods are meant to just be something so simple as primitive defense. Their placement along the landscape demonstrates nothing to protect, and their upright nature is far too intentional to have just happened by accident. So, if they're meant to harness and store electricity, why haven't we seen more of this technology represented in modern-day society in-game? Could this technology have been the reason for the ancients' fall? You tell me. And while we haven't gotten any new updates on Wilds yet, I'm anticipating some sort of news in March in line with the 20th anniversary of Monster Hunter. It's an exciting time for Monster Hunter fans across the globe, so if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date. You won't want to miss more theorycrafting videos with your fellow hunters, getting us by until we have something more concrete. And I have been loving the ideas coming from the community in the comments as we speculate on this together. I'm Jade, and I've been making Monster Hunter Wilds content over the course of the last 2 months. You owe it to yourself to join in the fun. On screen is a playlist of all the other Monster Hunter Wilds videos I've done to date. Some speculative, some informational, all fun. So, to all hunters old and new, may the Sapphire Star guide your way.